Hey, Jamie, I'm so excited to be back chatting with you again. It feels
Yeah,
like
it's
it's been
cool.
forever.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I am too. I am really excited. And today's topic, because let's be honest, we got interrupted because of work slash life. So this is a perfect topic, right?
Absolutely. And I just to share with everybody, so when we decided to do this, we actually had the epiphany that we should schedule next week as well. So like I feel really accomplished right now. So I'm curious what you think. Is work-life balance an actual thing, or is it like believing in unicorns?
I think it's a myth, to be honest. Given how much overtime people work, and most people put in, I'd say it's a unicorn with corporate sponsorship.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so we kind of built an outline, just to kind of talking points about what we want to cover. And as usual, I think we should start with the history of like when did work-life balance become a thing? Because obviously it didn't used to be a thing.
It did not. It did not. No, historically, let's see, it emerged somewhere around the like 1990s self-help boom. Is really where you started seeing work-life balance as an item. I mean, here's the facts. Americans work between 200 and 300 more hours per year than most Western countries.
That's
So
a
we
lot.
suck at this as a nation. Way to go. 70% of employees report poor work-life balance as the top reason for burnout.
That sounds about
And
right.
one of the biggest fixes that have been there, flexibility, turns out doesn't actually reduce stress. So it's not that it's flexible of when we work, right? It's the fact that we're working too much, right? And it's the
Yeah.
24-hour session. I mean, sitting here talking to you, my phone has now buzzed 3 times, which I'm positive are 3 emails from work.
So work-life balance isn't a thing. People are burning out because it's not a thing. I know we still talk about it all the time. So like, I'm curious if we think about it from a company perspective, do you think companies should care?
Oh, really interesting. I'm the ultimate capitalist here, right, Cindy? Like I am sitting there going, look, if you can exploit your workers and they're letting you exploit them and you get more profits out of them, that would be awesome. However, in the real world where my heart actually does beat, I would say, yeah, they have to care, right? Because we're seeing so much more burnout that's there. We're seeing high flyers burn out and not take that next step in their career because of problems with it, right? They've had to step off the corporate ladder or do something else because the stress has gotten so much. And we
Mm,
actually see that, and there's statistics out there about how much burnout is costing companies and stuff like that. And they're all kind of scary
mhm.
that's there. I think the important part that they suggest is like, what is actually balance? Is it a 40-hour work week? For some reason, we all think that that's the normal, but that was made by Henry Ford, right? Back in the 1920s. Like 40-hour work weeks weren't the norm. And
Right.
now we've got other issues. And I know you've talked about it in the past. We're doing different types of jobs. And so the strain of us working is different. 40 hours is not the correct answer.
Right. No, that I agree. And I don't know if we're going to come to some sort of revelation on what is the right answer. And I think it depends on the type of work that you do, honestly. But the one thing I'll say, from a financial perspective, when it companies, like we would call it a curvilinear, like, yes, if you push your employees harder, you get more out of them, but to a point, and then you get diminishing returns. Like you said, burnout. And I think those diminishing returns can either be short term and like illness, people get ill faster, or emotional burnout that has them checking out, so drops in productivity, but also the long term burnout, like you said, like where people just quit. And so, yeah, I think companies have. I don't want to say a responsibility. I don't know that I would say they have a social responsibility, but I sure think they have a responsibility on their P&L to keep track of this because it makes a difference in the productivity.
I do too. And okay, let's just define work-life balance. Okay. To you, what does work-life balance actually mean?
So, work-life balance for me is not a balance. It's a pendulum. And actually, there's research that shows that highest performers in organizations work exactly like this. They work in sprints. So you sprint and recover, and you sprint and recover. So, but interesting thing, when I look at work life balance, one of the mistakes I made is I didn't factor in rest. I factored in work, and then I factored in life. And sometimes the pendulum would swing to work, and sometimes it would swing to home. But it took me a long time to figure out that there's a third bucket, which is rest. And for me, that's solitude, looking at water, just like shutting down my brain thing. That's me. So for the longest time, so for me, it's a pendulum that swings with an occasional break in the middle to refresh.
It does for me too. So my work life balance tends to be a much a swing back and forth. I mean, if I'm having a crisis at home, it has to swing towards life, right? If I'm having opportunities or I'm just having a lot of fun at work, it swings towards work. And let's be honest, people who choose their careers because they like what they do, right? That
Mhm.
swings towards work can absorb more than 40 hours a week and be fulfilling and actually be a part of your life, right? Where and then there are other people who no, work is just a paycheck, it's there, and so their work life balance is going to be very different. It's going to be individual, and that's going to make it difficult for companies, right? We're talking about the P&L, we're talking about the bottom line, but the answer for individuals is probably different. That's
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and that's going to make it hard on managers.
Well, managers already have individual differences. Every single employee has a different way they want to be recognized. They have different ways that they communicate. Like I don't see it as it's just another thing that says each employee is unique. So I still put it on the manager to to talk to employees to understand. My manager probably would have to tell me to say no more often. Like, hey, you gotta, because I would always I find everything shiny and sparkly, and I want to do it all. So, but I do think managers have to figure out how people's patterns and how they work. But I just want to bring this back to the history
Yeah.
component. We talked about it becoming a thing or like a big deal in the 90s. We had pulled up some research that so women got into the workforce basically in World War II. They were, only teachers before that, sometimes nurses. But the data says that it was 1990, 80, 90, where we hit our peak in the workforce, 60% of women going to work. So I think that's part of why this whole work-life balance thing started to come up, because it previously there was, I think the home had more division of responsibilities. The dads probably weren't seen a lot at home, and they were at work, and women were at home. And so, like, division of duties, I think, played a role in it. I'm curious about your thoughts.
No, I absolutely agree. It wasn't that it was work-life balance wasn't an issue back in the 1960s and 50s. It was just that you divided it as a couple differently, right? I
Mhm.
think that's the answer. One did work and one did life, right?
Right.
And in the end, they balanced each other out. And now that we've shifted where more women are in the workplace, that's now going to shift the life part of it as well. It becomes more of a community. And there's a lot of social research out there. You know, my husband is very active. He's in charge of the food at my house. So we have a different division of labor than what you would have seen in a 1950s item.
Mhm.
And part of that is because of the awareness of it. So even though I don't think work-life balance is actually possible to achieve successfully, there is, and it's definitely not a scale. Like I
Yeah.
really wish we had a different phrase for it. I don't
Yeah.
know,
The phrase is
work
terrible.
life rest success. I don't know how to explain
Integration.
it.
Yeah.
Integration,
Yeah.
yeah. There's got to be a different. I'm sure somebody came up with a different phrase, and we just don't know what it
I'm
is.
sure.
But I actually do. Yeah, I think you're right. Um, I think it's because of progress we have made. That is important. I do think companies do recognize that work-life balance is necessary.
Mhm.
I find it really interesting because while they may espouse it, they don't necessarily live it.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually a huge component of it. So when we talk about leaders leading by example, no matter no matter what the company culture says, if the leader leads differently, the team will follow what the leader does. Because that's the norm that's set. So yeah, if you send emails at midnight or you send emails on a Sunday, that's what the delay send is for. But yeah, everybody, like suddenly everybody's inboxes get flooded at 9 a.m. on Monday morning when I when I've been working on the weekend. But yeah, it's when leaders set the tone. And I'm the worst example of this, Jamie. I figured out a long time ago not to send emails on the weekend, but I would take meetings on vacation. I was like,
Oh, me too. Me
yeah,
too.
I was like, but it's my choice. But I was setting such a bad example. And I didn't understand what I was doing because I was thinking, I like to work. I want to be on this meeting. But that set the wrong message. It sent the wrong message.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. I'm guilty of the same thing. I really love what I do, so it didn't bother me to get in there. And to be honest, I'm a person who gets bored easily. So
Mhm.
I love my beach vacations, but right next to me on that lounger is my laptop.
Yep.
Because I get I'm in my happy place. I've got my margarita. I am great. I can get a crap load done
Right.
while doing it. And it makes me happy. It makes me excited. That happens to be my work life balance. But
Right.
it's not a good work life balance to demonstrate to my team, right?
Right.
So, what I have learned to do is actually do private things on my vacation. So I'm actually am now, and it's something I learned as I matured as a leader, right? I do leave the meetings now. I do not say yes to the meetings. I take that so that I am demonstrating that to my team. Yet to make myself happy, I am often writing papers. In my world, I'm doing some research, I'm analyzing some data, I'm cleaning up other things. I will spend a lovely 3 hours on a beach fixing my calendar for the next
Oh,
3 months.
that's awesome.
Because it's time I never had. Cleaning out that inbox and trying to organize my contacts and stuff like that. That is what I will do. It's something I've always wanted to get done.
Right.
Don't have the time in the normal world. And I come back in a better place because
Yes.
I've gotten some of these other things that nobody can see but me.
Right. I would call so that cloud that hangs over you, which is clutter, like clutter my desktop on my computer. Now that I have like three virtual desktops, they're all cluttered. But the clutter in your inbox, the clutter in your calendar, that hangs over. That's a cognitive load. So when we do this stuff on vacation, I'm convinced that we're decreasing the load. This is part of our rest mechanism so that we can actually come back mentally refreshed because we're not, otherwise I know I would carry that burden through me through the whole trip. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So let's talk a little bit about, let's give some tips. Okay. So work life balance, we both agree it's not really a 50-50. It's a pendulum, right? This
Mhm.
is the real world, people. Okay. It's got to swing back and forth. If you're complaining that you're not 50-50, you're not living in the real world. There are no unicorns and ponies everywhere. So I'm sorry, but there are some really good tips of how to do some work life balance. So I'm going to give you mine for today. We're going to go back and forth.
That's
Okay.
awesome. Yeah.
So figure out small wins. That's my first one that's here. So today you can see I'm very casual. I've got a t-shirt on. It says Saints. It's my kids' school because I actually have a soccer game to go to after school, after work today. And I don't have a lot of time between back and forth. First of all, I scheduled it. It's a meeting on my calendar that allows me, nobody's going to input it there. I put it there the first day I got my soccer schedule so that I knew I would be free to do my kids' activity. And I'm dressed much more casually today at work than I normally would be because I'm going to support them. It's a city championship, so I need to be like the all out fan for today. It's a small win. It's not disturbing anybody up and down the hall, and it's planned, but it's a good way for me to balance that work and life.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
your
and
turn.
I'm gonna say it doesn't hurt that the Saints is the mascot for the university. I mean,
Oh, that's
just
true. But we're not wrong
I don't
color.
know.
Wrong
It's a
color.
different, it's spelled, or I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Mine is all about time blocking and calendar blocking. So, especially in corporations, I'm learning like academia is a little bit different, but in corporations, people can see you're free busy on your calendar and they'll take stuff, right? So, I block all my time in the morning up to, it used to be like 10 o'clock in the morning because that's when I think, well, I get a bunch of work done. I do my thoughtful work and then I leave some time open in the middle of the day, but then I block the evening. The evening is mine. If you want access to my evening, you have to ask permission. Like if you want access to my most the times that are most important to me, you got to ask my permission. You can't just schedule something. And I think that is the biggest hurdle for a lot of folks, is recognizing that they can claim their time and other people have to earn it, right, with a good request. When I first became a manager, customer service or support escalations was part of my job. So I felt like I always had to be on call, pick up every phone call. But what I finally figured out was, I told my team, look, that my evenings are for my kids and my family. And if you want my attention, leave me a voicemail. And if I think that it's worth me walking away from my kids, then I'll call you back. Otherwise, I'll call you tomorrow. I think
That
it's
makes
fair.
No, it is very fair. Fair. Tip number 3, as a leader, if you're in this situation, right? Make very public any sort of support that favors life over work when necessary. So when somebody is ill or something like that, you don't sit there and complain, I can't believe Judy's out today. I really needed her here, right? You sit there and you say, thank you, Judy, for not coming in and infecting everybody else with your virus. We really appreciate that sacrifice that you're doing. We'll pick it up from here, right? And by publicly announcing that to the rest of your team, you've not only given Judy permission to be gone, right? And deal with life, but you've also then let everybody else know, this is something I prefer you to do. Take care of yourself first. We will pick it up in the short run.
And that also means modeling, not so when you're sick, you have to stay home. When you
Yeah.
need to pick your kids up from school, you tell everybody. When you have a doctor's appointment, I know some of this stuff is like seems personal, but telling people, hey, I'm going to leave for a doctor's appointment, I'll be back in an hour. I mean, it gives other people permission to be human. And I think that's really important.
It absolutely is. Now, I work for a university, so there's a lot of evening activities, weekend activities, and items like that. I am very judicial with what I choose. I know when things are happening and I have opportunities for potentially promotion or something like that, I may show up a little more often at those items, but it's my choice. I strategically pick them though. I pick them for either when my students are going to see me, my
Mhm.
boss is going to see me, or I can bring my kids with, and it ends up being a family activity, and I can combine both work and life into the same type of item. So I went to like the local homecoming soccer game. Why? My kids wanted the free ice cream that they were going to get. I got to then talk to my boss, and it was a win-win for both of us, right?
Right.
It takes some intentionality though, and some strategic planning that's there. I love politics, office politics. I think they're fascinating, and this is one way to play them.
Right.
Don't be shy about it. I'm sorry. Don't be shy.
Yeah, I will say, so I'm not, I don't like a lot of being around a lot of people, but I had a boss tell me once, Cindy, if you don't go to the parties, the happy hour, they're not happy hours, but they're like big customer events, you won't get promoted. But he taught me that you write a list of people that you want to meet and you go intentionally meet them and then you leave. So
Yeah.
that was an awesome trick, but
Yeah. And
I'm
it helps balance those items.
yeah, agreed. Yeah. So I am curious, like we talked about as managers, how much impact we have, but we also talked about our personal responsibility. In the end, we are personally responsible for how we use our time. Whether it be, I mean, you can quit the job. And I say that, and I recognize the job market, excuse me, the job market's a little iffy right now, but ultimately we have to protect our health. But having said that, I'm curious, do you think that companies should end up paying for this problem of work-life balance?
I think you have to be careful with saying pay for it, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to suggest companies could pay for it with what's happening. So I do not think companies should necessarily like, open daycares inside of their businesses or something like that. While that would be lovely and it's a great benefit, and I would then be attracting a different sort of employee, if I had that particular benefit, that is a combination of an economic and a social decision that companies are not morally obligated to deal with, right? Corporations are not humans, despite in the law they are actually treated as humans that cannot die. That's they don't have feelings and stuff like that. That's actually they're made up of people who
People,
have feelings.
right?
That's there. And so I have a problem whenever I hear Apple has a moral obligation to, I disagree with that. However, Apple has a business reason to provide mental health care
Mhm.
to their employees. They have
Right.
an obligation to force vacations on individuals so that they will take the appropriate amount of rest. They have
Right.
an yeah, so it's that type of thing that I do believe companies should pay for. But most of the time, the reason that you're gonna do that is because it protects your bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree totally. The one thing that I think is just a bit misguided, and I think is companies implemented wellness programs, mental wellness programs. They pay a lot of money, billions of dollars to do this, and they're not effective. I think that's the one area that I think if we can share with managers, the wellness programs that actually engage teams with their manager, those are the ones that are effective, and it's largely because it teaches the manager how to behave and it teaches employees and managers how to have a conversation about being actually human. So I do think companies could lean into the research that will help their bottom line. Right, the ideas in the right place. The execution maybe is not working the way they thought it would, but I do believe that the companies that would encourage their people to take all their time off if they have it, the ones that have unlimited time off, if they measure the minimum that they take to try to make sure that they take more than the minimum, I think those are the things that will be very effective in ensuring their teams are productive and their best employees survive.
Yeah, I absolutely and to be honest, most of the stuff is just it doesn't seem that hard to me. That's my whole problem with all of this is, I'm sorry, can you just be human? Be a manager who's human, who recognizes what your impact is on individuals, right? And for the most part, whenever you meet individual managers, they all think they're doing a better job than they probably are at this item, right? And so I think one of the issues is always going to end up being, you want better work-life balance in your company, improve the communication between you and the layer above you and the layer below you.
Yes, that I totally agree. I totally agree. So, well, did we cover it all, Jamie?
No, not at all. But this is going to be fun anyway. I think it's great. I think it's hilarious that you and I, who are both terrible at our work life balances, I think overall, because if I had to rate myself, I'm giving myself a D, with what's
I don't
happening.
think
I
I'm terrible
understand.
at it.
Oh,
I
I
think
am terrible.
I just love work, and so, like, but when my son will be home tomorrow night, and I that's all I'm doing. So, like, so,
That's
yeah.
great.
I will say my husband gets the short end of the stick, though, like, that's
Listen,
I gotta do
I'm
better.
in a situation where both my work and my husband's work are on the swing up, right?
Mhm.
So what am I doing here? I am sitting here with you, which I'm having a blast with,
Me too.
on my birthday, which there you go. My work-life balance is so much fun,
Happy
right?
birthday.
So, thank you. But it is a really interesting scenario. I think that I'm always going to be my harshest critic on my ability to do it. If you ask my kids if I do a decent job, I actually think they're going to say yes, because I am there for them whenever they absolutely need it. But
Right.
they also know that there are times when I need them to step up as well. So it ends up becoming, I think everybody's career is a family effort.
Oh,
How
yeah,
about
I
we think
totally
about
do.
that as work life balance, right? It's a
It
family career.
I don't I totally agree, and with a lot of communication, like you said, at work. I'm gonna add one more tip that, before we go. There was a COVID actually was probably the biggest uh, revelation to me when I work for family and understanding how to make work life work together. That's when I recognized that it was less about the time I spent with my kids and more about being present. And once I realized that I had to completely turn off the work part of my brain and focus only on what was happening with my kids, that changed everything. It was like it seems like a simple thing. The time didn't change, the time allocation didn't change, but the quality of our interactions changed, and that was just so. It was a gift, I will say.
That is awesome. I'm going to reiterate. I agree 100% with you. You know what the best thing that my family bought, to be together? A
With
ping pong table.
oh, that's awesome.
There's no electronics
Right.
involved in a ping pong table, and my family plays each other a couple of times a day, and
That's awesome.
it's a special time, um, and it helps with that work-life balance. It absolutely does. It's a 5-minute game when you're as bad as I am. Um, but it's a wonderful event.
That's awesome. Well, so I think we could agree that the biggest disservice to everyone is that this phrase exists, work-life balance. It's total fallacy, setting people up for failure. It's more about responsibility and making it work together in life.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And let's be honest, it's not work-life balance, it's work-life rest that we also
Yeah,
need to think about, right? So
agreed.
if rest was a stock, most of us would be seriously underinvested.
Yeah,
Um,
but that just makes it an asset that appreciates when you do nothing. Which I mean, like that's kind of awesome. How many assets like that do you have? So
there we go. There we
awesome.
go. So this has been fun, Cindy.
I agree.
Um,
Happy birthday,
so
Jamie.
thank you. But until next time, everyone, keep your spreadsheets handy and your coffee strong.